Served in various roles, including Director of Community Services, Executive Director of Adirondack Medical Services, and Vice President of Physician Practice. He spent the past 7 years as Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer. Skemeka replaces Diane Shagru, who retired last December after 14 years in the position.
I'm News 10 meteorologist Steve Caparizzo with your Talk 1300 and 98.7 weather. A really nice stretch of weather going into the weekend. Partly sunny this afternoon and a high near 80. Mostly clear, cool tonight, down to 52. Partly sunny on Saturday, a high of 79. And some super weather Sunday, partly sunny, low humidity, a high near 81.
Currently, it's 75 degrees by Cary, near up to date, where you can hear Mark Levin tonight at 6
degrees?
here on Talk 1300 and 98.7.
When I was outside, that a little bit.
Required to qualify.
Is this a song?
Sound off. Call 8444 the USA now to let Dan know what you think. 844-484-3872. The Dan Bongino Show.
Right?
Listen, I don't want to bother you with plugs and stuff. Watch the show. I get tired of it. I know it's annoying. I totally get it. Been told 1,000 times you're not supposed to tell people something's annoying and do it. I'm sorry. I just do my thing, you know. But I've got an former FBI agent on my Fox show tomorrow night. He's on my podcast today as well. If you listen to today's podcast, I forget the number. Is it 1829? But it's out there. It's launched. It'll be up in a minute on Rumble, and I think it's already up on Apple and Spotify. I'm not messing with you. The interview is a real eye-opener. The opening questions are kind of, us getting to know each other. I hadn't met him before. But he says something about the lawyers being kicked out of Mar-a-Lago and about the Secret Service lock thing. I'm going to have him back on my Fox show tomorrow night. That just blew my mind. We'll get to some of it in a minute. It's incredible. It really is. Now, back to this, Trump was hiding nuclear weapons in Mar-a-Lago or whatever ridiculous nonsense. I mean, this is pinky tape round two, right?
Nuclear weapons?
Jim was home again. I don't know what he's doing with the dark web. It is very, very disturbing. I've tried to have him fired multiple times. He has some kind of employee protections that are very disturbing. He just goes out there and does this thing on the dark web. And he found, there's a sequel to the movie War Games coming out. I was unaware of this, apparently. But Jim found the trailer on the dark web. And I think the FBI had Jim, an advisory role, you think, in the movie, like Zero Dark 30? Definitely, like the CIA? Yeah, Jim thinks so, too. Again, Jim's on the dark web a lot. It's creepy. But he found this trailer for War Games, too. I hadn't heard of this, so check this out.
Coming to theaters in 2023. The sequel 40 years in the making. Donald Trump stars in War Games Part 2.
Hello, Professor
That's going
Falcon.
to be released in
How are you?
2023.
Excellent. It seems a long time. Can you explain the removal of your user account?
Yes, the election was stolen.
Sounds like an alien.
Mail-in ballots. Too much to go into right here.
Shall we play a game?
Yes. Let's play thermonuclear war.
Fine.
Let's see. Let's think about it. Let's start with Adam Shifty Shift. You may call him Pencil Neck. I call him Pencil Neck. Then let's do Crooked Hillary Clinton. Okay. And last but not least, definitely Rosie O'Donnell. She's a big target. Very hard to miss. Let's do it, okay?
An ultra super mega production. War Games Part 2. Rated TA for totally
War
awesome.
Games Part 2. And that's
I
going to get released in
didn't know.
2023.
I didn't know.
Well, we don't have
is Matthew Broderick in the movie?
specific
I
date,
didn't
you
know
know?
this. I'm shocked he's doing a
None of
movie
that?
with Trump. I did not see it. Fact checkers! Bill McCarthy, Tom Kircher, Louis Jacobson, stand down. That's a joke. Hey, a big hat tip, very seriously, Sean Farish. He is at Captain Deplorable 45 for doing the Trump impression, which, by the way, was so spot on that when Jim sent that to me, he's like, Dan, check this out. We got to lighten up the mood on a Friday. I listened to it. I'm not kidding when I say this. Jim, I thought you had spliced Trump himself talking about that stuff. I'm like, there's no way that it was that good. So Sean Farish, he's at Captain Deplorable 45 on, what's that, Twitter? He's on Truth, of course, at Captain Deplorable 45 on Truth. So go give him a follow on Truth. We appreciate that. All right, here's the tell they're worried and why they're throwing out, crazy stuff like, oh my gosh, the nuclear codes, it's going to be a nuclear war. Trump started. Really? And you waited all this time? Kind of strange. Here's the tell things have gone wrong for them. Folks, the question isn't what was in Mar-a-Lago, okay? If there were documents there he shouldn't have had, there was a way to clean it up. I don't play BS games with you to waste your time. There's a process for that. The reason we don't go out and typically arrest and prosecute former presidents, and I'm not suggesting you like this or hate this, because former presidents and presidents now do a lot of things wrong. I'm not suggesting they should be above the law. What I'm telling you is, in third world tin pot dictator type, tyrannies and pseudo-democracies, fake democracies, where people pretend they have a vote, what happens all the time is the incoming group coming into power investigates and typically prosecutes the outgoing. Just go down to South America. I mean, just look anywhere. The problem with that is it sets up an endless cycle. I am not giving Dan, what do you want to do? Get away with it? That's not what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting Trump got away with anything or that getting away with it's a good option. What I'm telling you is in a world full of sinners and fallible governing systems, you have bad, worse, and worstiest options, okay? Yeah, that's my word. I made it up. I'm aware it's not an actual word, but I like it. The problem we have is avoiding the worstiest option, okay? And I think the worst option we could possibly have right now is if it is not a national security crisis or a very serious crime like Joe Biden being potentially blackmailed by the Chinese Communist Party, right? If it's not a very serious crime, you have to exhaust every option before we get to the nuclear option, no pun intended, where you send a 40-person FBI team to raid the house. Because what happens? Folks, the government works the way it works because people have fidelity to the Constitution and processes. The Constitution, listen to me, hat tip the great Rush Limbaugh.
I know what they're talking about.
The Constitution is nothing more than a piece of parchment, a piece of paper.
It's been around for
It has no power if you don't think it has power. None. I'm going to play a clip from Scalia on my Fox show Saturday night about just this. The Constitution's empowered by you, we the people, and the consent of the governed. When you start arresting former presidents and people don't believe the Constitution or process and law and order means anything anymore, the descent to madness is right around the corner. It's been set off, and civilization is a thin crust on a volcano. You may not like a lot of what Havelock Ellis said. I don't like a lot of it myself. But that line is most certainly correct. What keeps that thin crust on the volcano is a common fidelity to those documents, those founding documents, that certain things won't be done. The fact that they raided this guy's compound, President Trump's compound in Mar-a-Lago, and all the thin gruel they could get up, it may be some classified documents, is outrageous. Again, play Jim, cue up for me, cut two. Here's CNN's own legal analyst on the air, Paul Callan. This is CNN just the other day. This is why you saw the nuclear thing being dropped to the Washington Post. Here's him acknowledging, we're in a problem if this is just a Presidential Records Act thing. This isn't going to go over well. Check this out.
If this becomes a Presidential Records Act violation, not more, do you think it is enough to warrant all of this?
No, it's not enough to warrant all this. And this is a daring and dangerous move by the Department of Justice to serve a warrant on a former president and to raid his personal residence.
Folks, that was CNN. It wasn't Fox. It wasn't MSNBC. It wasn't Vice. That was CNN, where their own analysts just a few days ago was starting to realize and say on live cable news television that, this is going to create a serious problem. Here's an even more serious problem. You've got a group of people out there, a lot of them, not just one, who would like to see Trump arrested, locked up, and prosecuted, but can't even articulate one single violation of the law Donald Trump may have took part in. This aired on Newsmax. This is hilarious. Cue up for me, cut three. Here's a Trump protester in front of Trump Tower when asked to name, hey, what exactly should Donald Trump be arrested for? Do you know? Check out the answer.
President that had committed this many provable criminal acts.
So what are the provable criminal acts, I guess?
Provable criminal acts. Well, I'm done talking.
Yeah, of course you're done talking. Yeah, it's not a big shocker. I mean, it shouldn't be hard, right? Shouldn't be hard. I can tell you right now what the Bidens may be guilty of. Foreign Agent Registration Act violations, potential conspiracy violations, 371. Okay, granted, I may have a head start as a former federal agent, but it's not complicated. You have no idea what he's even guilty of, and yet you want him locked up? This is tin pot dictator, banana republic stuff. Now, here's why this case is even uglier. So again, you're suggesting to me some kind of nuclear codes or whatever, or nuclear information was there that was of such a grave national security threat that you did nothing to acquire this stuff for all of these months and you just left it there and decided to serve a search warrant in front of what appears to be a relatively non-Trump friendly judge? You may say, Dan, they don't get to pick the judges. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, do you? I can see the lefties now. Listen, I don't typically do this when it comes to magistrates, and because I found many of them, even though I've been on the other side of a couple of them, in the federal system to be above board. Like, they don't want to be perceived as politicians. But ladies and gentlemen, there's very little doubt that this guy, obviously, this magistrate, was not a fan of Donald Trump. I'm not suggesting or implying it. I don't get ahead of my skis on that. However, I've heard some lefties say, well, these judges are there on a rotating basis. So whenever the FBI was going to serve the warrant, they didn't get to pick the judge. You just don't know what you're talking about, man. Okay? You don't. Folks, when you find out who the judge is, and it's a judge you like, you can go and rush the warrant in front of the judge. Judge shopping. You never heard that term before? Of course you haven't. You're a leftist. It happens all the time. A judge who's very friendly for you in your applications. Folks, a lot of things happen in the federal and local law enforcement system, which is interesting that the left all of a sudden are fans of the FBI, the whole defund the police crowd. But a lot of things happen in the law enforcement system that I've told you about on the show that aren't pretty. Judge shopping is one of them. When you've got a shady warrant at best. Here's another one. You ever heard the term test-a-lying? Well, if you haven't, you better tattoo it on your skull, because that's exactly what happened in the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. People test-a-lie. This stuff happens. So again, forgive me for not taking the FBI's default explanation that, yes, this was all justified in the up and up. There was a nonpartisan judge who swore off on a warrant. Everything we said was true. I'm not accepting any of that, and you shouldn't either. Well, why? Just a news article from the other day by John Solomon. It's in my newsletter from the other day. Questions grow about Trump raid after revelation of grand jury subpoena and extensive cooperation. Folks, as it turns out, on June 3rd, the FBI and DOJ came to Mar-a-Lago, and apparently we're looking to see where some of these documents that were taken by the Trump administration, where some of these documents were. Multiple sources are now saying that Donald Trump greeted them personally. The lawyers had a cordial back and forth. And so this law professor writes, the more we learn, the more confusing this gets. Did they relay this history to the magistrate? You're trying to make a case in front of a federal magistrate judge that you have to raid Donald Trump's residence at Mar-a-Lago, an unprecedented breach of decorum in the United States of America. You're trying to make that case, right? You're trying to prove an 18 U.S.C. 2071 case that requires whoever willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, or destroys these records, right? But note the component of the crime there. Willfully and unlawfully. You have to prove probable cause for a warrant. All of those elements of the crime are met, right? Now you're going up in front of the judge. Did they tell the judge that Donald Trump's team, the lawyer team, and Donald Trump personally had been cooperating since June 3rd? The answer is we'll see when the affiant and the affidavit and what they said become public. But did they put that in there? That he was cooperating from that point on? Because if he was cooperating, I wonder how they're going to prove that he willfully concealed things. I'm going to see the warrant, and I wouldn't take at face value that was sworn to in the warrant. What was sworn to in the warrant was, in fact, accurate. I got Kash Patel, folks, coming up at the top of the next hour. He was the one of the lead investigators in the Spygate case. He was a senior-level Trump administration official in the defense intel side. He's a very smart guy. We're going to walk through this piece by piece. It's important stuff. You need to hear about it. You woke up in a different country this week than the country you fell asleep in the week before. Big trouble ahead. I think we'll fix it in the long run. I'm long on the United States of America, but in the short run, we got some rough waters ahead. I'll be right back. It's Dan Bongino with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about. Upside. My listeners are earning cash back for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just down.
Okay, well, I think I'm done listening to 1300 for now.